What'd you think of the workout today?
My go-to is it sucked,
Yeah.
but it sucked in a good way. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was a grinder. It was not. Did you switch the workouts last minute, or was that all just like some sort of ruse to? Yeah.
It was just a mental challenge to see what people did when we switched it.
No. What did we do? I want you to tell me.
Well, we had two different pack workouts. One we ran last night that we built for hunters, and then we had a different one. And at the last minute, we just called an audible because we wanted to go to that one from last night.
Was the one that we did noticeably worse than the one that was originally on the whiteboard that already, had my quads quivering a little bit before we started?
I think it's just noticeably different. The one that we ended up doing is like one of those really long grinders where not one thing in that workout is overly hard, but it's just the amount of work you're going to actually do for such a long period of time.
Yeah, I think you or somebody said it looked like I was just in the zone. It reminded me of old wrestling practices.
Yeah.
It's just head down. If somebody's yelling at you to do something, you just do it.
Yeah.
And so by the end, I was just in that zone on, I think, school lunge number 185.
Yeah.
Coming up on 200 before some sled push and pulls. I was definitely hurting for sure.
Yeah, it's like one of those just one foot in front of the other foot workouts.
But talk about modeling real life application in the woods, because
oh yeah,
I've been there.
Yeah.
Packing an animal out.
Yeah.
And taking one step at a time, looking at like a down tree or dead fall and be like, okay, just make it there.
Yeah.
Just make it there. And then stop. And that's what I was doing on those lunges. I don't know if you saw me. I'd be like, 5, stop, think about my life and where I went wrong to be here, do 5 more, and then have another existential crisis and then do it again.
There's so many pack outs like that where it literally becomes like, I'm going to make it to that tree, and then I'm going to make it to that tree. Nate and I had one like that one time packing out a bear where we got into that like rotten snow, and it was about waist deep. And so about every third step you'd post hole through to your waist, but those 2 steps in between you didn't. And so you never knew exactly when you were going to fall through. And it got to where there was several times where you'd kind of crawl on your hands and knees because you didn't want to fall through up to your hips.
Yep.
And it was definitely like, I'm going to make it 10 feet and I'm going to take a break. And then I'm going to make it 10 more feet. And it was that trip is pretty memorable because it was a true like 24-hour experience where we started packing like at 5 p.m. and then we got like the truck back to town at like 5 p.m. the next day. Just like, it was brutal.
Yeah, I don't think I have a great comparison story. The closest I can get is Kyle, co-founder of Outfitter Guy that you met. And for those listening, this guy is at least 6'5". He's just a abnormally tall guy, and he has no torso. He's just leg straight from his rib cage down, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And obviously hunting with him, same thing. We weren't even packing an animal out. We didn't get any animals on that trip, but just following him around the backcountry.
Oh, yeah.
I'd look like a kid. I'd be taking 5 steps for every 2, and then he'd get bound ahead of me and look back, and I'd just be, shuffling real quick trying to catch up. And
well, I bet he can move through the backcountry. His legs are so long.
Oh, yeah. It's impressive to watch, especially when you're watching from behind trying to keep up. He can really cover some ground and quickly, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those long-legged guys. There's so many of those guys that, like, have never been in a gym one day in their life.
Yep.
Like, they, like, smoke Swisher Sweets and just, like, smoke you up the mountain.
Yeah. He's double threat now because he's week 3 into the 8-week kettlebell program.
Oh, yeah.
So
he's going to be a machine.
Oh, yeah, he's like, man, tell Dustin I already lost like 6 pounds. Not that he had much to lose, but he's...
Yeah, he'll be a beast this year.
Yeah, when we go out bear hunting in a week or 2, I'm sure I'll be sucking wind trying to keep up.
So you got a cabin in the middle of nowhere?
Yep. Yeah, about, what is it? What are we now, 2023? We're in the future, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, about 4 years ago, pre-pandemic, 2019, went through a divorce with my ex-wife. I'd been living in Louisiana doing the whole just tech exec life.
Yeah.
You know, white picket fence, big house, flying to New York, San Francisco, putting 200,000 air miles in every year.
Jeez.
Shout out to American Airlines.
Crazy.
I'm still holding my status thanks to COVID. Not that I'm going anywhere. But, you know, went through an unexpected divorce. And at the time, I had been hunt curious.
Yep.
I had just started hunting right before the divorce. We can go in that backstory in a little bit, but ultimately, I said, I want to live in the woods. I'd been to Idaho once on a chance trip and fell in love with it. On that trip, I saw elk, I saw antelope, I saw a wolf, all in like a weekend trip out here. I'm like, I'm moving there one day. And then the opportunity just happened to present itself way earlier than I expected, and I took it.
Dang.
Yeah, and drove out to Boise from Louisiana, where we were at, got a month-to-month rental, and started looking at properties all over, and then eventually landed in Atlanta, Idaho. And that is, I believe, the smallest livable village that's accessible by road in the lower 48.
Really?
Yeah, there's 30, including the 2 kids my now wife and I have produced in the past 4 years.
That's part of the 30 that live there?
Well, it's 38 now.
Jeez.
38 year-round individuals who live out there. No grocery store, no gas station. Closest city's Boise, which as the crow flies is about 80 miles. So mile-wise, not too far. But year-round, there's one road in, one road out. It's 68 miles of dirt Forest Service road that is often landslid in when we get a lot of rain, or avalanched in the winter. This winter,
Snow.
5 days it was shut down when we worked with the road crew that we have up there, the 2-man crew to clear it. It took 2 days.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So only one way in and one way out of that town.
That is it.
Man. Or is it like mountain town deep in a canyon, like heavy snowfall in the winter?
So the town itself sits about just under 6,000 feet. But we are at the bottom side of the Sawtooth Mountains. So you're looking at a 10,000 foot granite peak called Mount Greylock. That's kind of like the big focus point looking north in the town. And we have mountain goats on there. We'll get out there as a town and just glass mountain goats. We did that 2 weekends ago, which was a lot of fun. But it is right at the base. It sits in a little pocket right on the headwaters of the Boise River. And then if you took a plane, you could hop over the mountains and you'd be in Stanley in like 20 minutes via plane. In the summer, sometimes we'll have like through hikers who will go from Atlanta to Stanley or Stanley to Atlanta, and it's about a 30-mile, trip up and through the Sawtooths.
That's insane. So it's pretty insane that you came from like corporate America, traveling all over Louisiana, land in Boise, but then just kind of spur of the moment, you find like a good deal on a cabin and went for it?
Yes. Very good deal. So, it's the cabin of our dream. Well, it was built by a bachelor. So as we've grown our family, there's a little bit of things that we would love to have been able to change.
Yeah.
But, 2 wood burning fireplaces. So we live off that, which is great. But we back up to national forest land. So you go out our back door, you open the little French doors in our bedroom, and there's 3,000 acres of national forest land. So I can go run trap lines right out the back door. I shot my first bear with my bow off my back deck.
Crazy.
In my underwear. So it's just one of those things where there's so many opportunities. And for someone like me who was relatively new to hunting when I moved out west and then wanted to go all in, it was the perfect opportunity. It was there. It was every game species I wanted to hunt or trap. It was just a perfect combination and really worked out well.
Yeah, you can go all in right away. Did you put any internet out there?
Yes. So
like Starlink or something?
We have Starlink now, but when we first moved there, Rural Telecom had a DSL line that had been run out to the town a long, long time ago. And it's about 10 megs up, and it's enough to do a Zoom call because I still had my day job working, and I was still attached to the matrix, so to speak, and had to do that to pay the bills. And it worked. And then Starlink came last year to our area, and we've had that now, and that helps a lot. it's also just a catch-22 because when we first moved up there, I hadn't enabled internet. So we were kind of going back and forth, my now wife and I, and we'd go up there and there's no cell service. So with no internet, there was nothing.
Talk to anyone.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Man.
It's just been a slippery slope of kind of still getting sucked back into it, but it's necessary. But when you get that full unplugged nature, it's amazing.
Is that like an old mining town? Why is it there?
Oh, I can give you the history, buddy. So the town of Atlanta, Idaho, founded in 1864 by a guy named Stanley, which is what the town of Stanley's named after. They found a gold deposit, gold lode there. Very remote, hard to get to. So it was really only accessible by summer. And it was from Rocky Bar, which is south of Atlanta, which used to be the county seat of Alturas County, Idaho. I know. Ask me how I know. But it was a boom town very quickly. So by 1867, I think there were 500 people there. At its peak, there were 2,000. Wow. Mostly Chinese immigrant labor, pulling stuff out of the ground. It went through about the 1880s when it was really producing gold. And fun fact, the Atlanta lode pulled more gold out of it than the entire California gold rush of 49.
Crazy.
Yeah. So just an insanely rich deposit of gold. And it actually has been producing gold since really up until the 1930s. There was still pretty active gold mining there. Now you have people who have claims. People still go up there to gold mine, but no active, huge operations anymore.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the gold dried up, people move out, and there's just a few 38 of you left.
Yep. That's it. It's funny. There was a sizzle reel I saw. There was a Discovery Channel show that they went up in 2017. So a year before I moved up there, and they were interviewing the town, and it was called The End of the Road because it really is the end of the road. But they made this whole drama thing, with the little townspeople and skewed everybody's thing. It's pretty interesting.
Very dramatic.
Oh, it was so dramatic. There's the nicest guy ever, and they're like, he's from Chicago. He'll kill you. It's making all the people at the end of the road sound really crazy, but.
Just insane, preppers, doomsday.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting about it? It is end of the road. It's a small community. Everybody knows everybody, which has its ups and downs of knowing people's business. But the eclectic nature of the people that are out there is insane. You have people who grew up there, right? Mm-hmm. Went to school there when they actually had a school. You have people who were in the tech world like myself, who've now kind of just buck the system a little bit. Let's go out to the end of the road, and everyone in between. So it's really cool to just see the community that goes there, because it does force you. That's one thing I didn't know moving out there, because I grew up very suburban.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to open the flue on my fireplace. Couldn't figure out why my fire kept dying and why I was freezing to death every night.
Yeah.
You get the avalanches, and everybody pitches in, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can rely on the people in town to show up. We all are part of the volunteer fire. We have more EMS personnel per capita than any town in Idaho.
Yeah.
Granted, because out of the 38 people, I think 9 people are EMT certified.
Yeah. So you got to have those skills to live out there.
Yeah. And it sharp learning curve.
Yeah.
Very sharp. But everybody else there makes you learn too, and is willing to teach as well. That's the other big thing is, it was intimidating for me coming knowing nothing, but it was very kind of open to arm. It was certainly a slow acceptance, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
There was a vetting process for sure. What is this guy doing out here?
Yeah.
But, eventually you kind of break down those barriers, and now everybody up there is like family.
Yeah, community is much more real and tangible in those small towns.
And ironically, I went up there to get away from all that. Bad divorce. I just wanted to be a mountain man. I wanted to just go run trap lines and hunt animals and, just screw the world. Yeah. That was my mentality. And then the actual environment broke that down and humbled me in such a way that I had to reach out to the community, and then the community was just,
there
amazing.
To help.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what year did you start doing Mountain Tough?
The year that I moved out there.
Okay.
So 2019.
How'd you find it? Do you remember?
I think just internet.
Yeah.
Like just general searches. So, I mean, for context, when I moved out there 3 months prior, I had shot my first deer. So I had a cooler full of deer meat from Tennessee, or like just a tree stand.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'd failed multiple times at hunting before that from a tree stand, but I finally connected, got a nice little 8-point buck with my ex-father-in-law, and we got it processed. I didn't do any of the processing, take whole deer, no field dressing, no nothing. Take it to the processor. All of a sudden it turns into like these beautifully packaged, deer steaks and, ground meat. And I thought I was, hot stuff. Like, yeah, I can kill an animal, but I didn't know any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I'm in this cabin. I'm an Idaho resident. I'm putting in for tags. And I was like, I had that moment where I'm like, well, I don't know anything. So it was two things. One, I knew I wanted to archery elk hunt.
Yeah.
So I ended up going with an outfitter my first year. So I found an outfitter, 8 months before. So maybe like February of 2020. I reached out to an outfitter. He's like, I got time for you in September. Come out to the White Cloud Wilderness. We'll go hunt archery elk. And it was pretty much immediately after that, my whole mindset went to, okay, how do I learn everything that I can about elk hunting? So it was
get in shape.
That was on top of the list, but it was like, how do you bugle? I go buy a reed and just make like dead animal noises in my apartment for a little while in the cabin, and trying to listen to Corey Jacobson on Elk 101.
Yeah.
And then just through that kind of thread, it was like, well, here's Mountain Tough. Like if you want to get in shape, do this.
Yeah.
And, I came from a wrestling background, CrossFit background. So I thought I was in shape, and, I was in shape at that point. But then when we moved to the cabin, I would go out on hikes, and those hikes would annihilate me.
Just crushed.
Because, again, I came from the Southeast.
You got elevation.
Yeah. I mean, a hill for us is like a little above sea level.
Yeah.
And, that might wind you, but I thought it was easy peasy.
And
but then
rugged terrain,
7,000 feet, tons of deadfall. And I'm talking like a backpack with a peanut butter and jelly in it, and I'm huffing and puffing. And then, having that realization and mental come to Jesus of like, okay, hypothetically, I take a bow and arrow, 15 pounds, put it on my back. I hike with food, a tent, whatever, and then I actually kill an animal. Then what? Well, first off, I need to figure out how to butcher an animal because I still hadn't done that.
By yourself.
By myself.
No help.
And then like having those hikes, mentally putting myself there, like, how do I put insert how heavy a quarter is on my back? I'm going to die. Or the meat's going to spoil, or, I'll kill myself on the mountain trying to get it off. So I'm like, okay, I need something specific.
Yeah.
I've always been into domain specific training. So then stumbling across Mountain Tough, I was like, well, this must be it. I've never done pack training, heavy pack training. And I found 4570, which I don't know if that was the first year you guys had done that or the second year.
That's the first one, yeah.
Okay. And I did it. And I waited until we were 9 or 12 weeks out and really hammered home. And it was terrible. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
But, doing it at the cabin, at elevation, and I think we were talking earlier, but, I would set aside an hour a day because you guys lied to us. And you said it's an hour workout. But I think there was like some fine print or an asterisk there that I missed.
It's an hour if you're really fast.
Oh, yeah. And that was not me. So, I'd be filling my sandbags. I went to Cabela's, got all that done. I was dialed in. First workout took like 2 hours. Yeah, just torched my day. But, I did that religiously up to the hunt, and I felt ready.
Sweet.
Which was awesome.
And that's the one you went on an outfitter with?
I went with an outfitter out in the White Clouds, and it was higher than the town we live in. So we got out there, we horsebacked in, so we pack trained in. It was some wall tents way out in the White Clouds, beautiful terrain. I felt ready. I was in shape. I'm like, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to nail it. And we got to the wall tents that first night. And they said, we're just going to walk over here. It was almost dark, so we weren't going to go hunt. We were like, we're just going to go out and play some scenarios, like, caller, shooter, that kind of thing. And we walked maybe a mile. And I had to hide my heavy breathing from the guide.
The elevations
10 at 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
I didn't think that 6,000 to 10,000 would be that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But what I credit Mountain Tough with, I caught up real quick.
Yeah.
Like it was
Some
that first day, it took a little bit of an adaptation. It was tough. But then by the next day, I felt fine. But, we put in 7 days, I think 60 plus boot miles.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. And I ended up on the 5th day having an opportunity, which I whiffed. And then I was able to re-knock an arrow and whiff again. So
missed 2 shots.
Missed 2 shots.
2 bowls.
1 bowl.
Same bowl.
Dang.
Dang.
First shot I was dialed in for 50 yards because I misranged. Second one I re-ranged correctly, and then I just whiffed.
Crazy.
Beautiful, like 300 class bull. And that mental toll of missing that and then not having a single chance again the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
Missed that one shot.
Going home.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. That's wild.
Yep.
And so that was essentially your real hunting experience.
Yep.
You'd done a little bit of tree stand hunting in Tennessee.
Yep.
Where did you grow up as a kid?
Georgia.
Yep. In the suburbs.
In the suburbs, it was one of those things like hunting was always on the periphery. It's not like I wasn't exposed to hunting. My uncle hunted, my grandfather hunted. He used to go do like African safaris and hunt. And I'd always see the stuff on his walls. He had a cabin. And I was always enamored with like the mountain man stuff. But for whatever reason, I never got the itch as a kid and I never got pushed into it, which hindsight's probably good because I probably would have pushed back because that's just my nature.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of a bummer that I never, got taken along. But my dad didn't hunt. My granddad didn't hunt. It just wasn't in our direct nuclear family. So it just didn't happen for me.
Yeah, if it's not close with like a dad or someone really close to the family, it's hard to get to where you're actually getting out there and experiencing and learning some things, especially like the butchering and the field dressing.
Yeah.
Shooting your rifle, learning how to shoot, sighting in. Archery is the same. Like it takes quite a few years to get enough time to create that exposure.
Yeah. But getting into it as an adult, I have conflicting thoughts, right? Like, of course, I wish maybe as a kid now, because it's a passion of mine now. Like, man, I missed out on all those years, all those potential like learning opportunities. But hindsight is what it is. I was a young, dumb kid. Yeah. I probably would have done some really stupid things or maybe lost interest, maybe circled back. Who knows? But, I think things all happen for a reason.
They do, yeah.
And I have so much more passion. And the other thing is, like, I have the resources too. Like, I've talked with some people who've been hunting their whole lives. And from the time I went like boots on the ground in Idaho, I've probably done a lot more hunting than a lot of people have. Yeah. Right. Not in all cases by any stretch of the imagination, but I talked to some guys that are like, man, you've done way more hunting than me. But, I'm doing spring bear, turkey, then I'm going out of state and doing mule deer in Arizona or javelina and just kind of going all over the place just because I have the passion and the means.
Yeah. You're going all in at an older age with more resources. How old were you when you did that guided trip in Idaho? That White Cloud one? 30
or 31.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I got my first hand-me-down bow from a buddy when I was 29. And that was in Louisiana. And I built a little range in the backyard because I am a master of none. I am the most okayest person at about everything. And I knew it. So I built a range behind our fence in a suburban neighborhood in Louisiana. And watched some John Dudley videos online, bought a knock to it release and tried to figure out how to just pull the dang bow back, which was a battle in itself. I dry fired it once I finally got it, back and somehow didn't jump string or get the strings off the cams.
Yeah.
Or like hurt myself.
Crazy.
But hucked a neighbor. I always worry about this, that someone's going to be listening, but I did huck an arrow into a neighbor's roof. It was just all the typical dumb things that you can happen when you're trying to learn on your own.
Oh yeah, for sure. Without much guidance at all. And so then through that whole experience, you decided to write a book about adult onset hunting.
Yeah.
How did that idea kick off? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. Well, so I had started in Louisiana, got a bow, learned to hunt, I'm using air quotes here, went on a guided, another use for air quotes, pig hunt in Arkansas, which was pretty much just some yokel in, middle of nowhere Arkansas. I was like, yeah, you can just come shoot as many pigs as you want. Had a corn feeder. And he plopped me and a buddy who I started with bow hunting in a tree stand. And, I had every scenario played out in my head for that first hunt, which was, if a pig comes in from this way, I'm good. Pig comes from that way, I'm good. I felt practiced and ready, but I never prepared for the ultimate outcome, which was nothing, right? Mm-hmm. We sat in a tree stand for 2 days, 8 hours a day, freezing to death, never saw a single pig. And, that was my first intonation, like, okay, like this hunting thing's not easy. Even tree stand hunting.
It's not guaranteed.
Never a guarantee.
Yeah.
And oftentimes from like a mental aspect, you don't prepare well.
To fail.
Exactly. And that's, statistically,
you're failing a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
And a lot more than I was expecting. So I went through that first experience, then got my first deer, and then moved to Idaho, like within a matter of 6 months. Mm-hmm. So this was all a quick succession. Like it was on there. And when I actually moved to Idaho, my ex-wife and I, she was an FBI special agent, amazingly smart woman, jiu-jitsu world champion, because that was our kind of lives before.
Yeah.
But we had an actually pretty amicable divorce, unexpected, but amicable. Mm-hmm. So I originally thought I was going to write a book about divorce and like how to be kind to each other and do that. Because I'd written a book before and I like to write. So that was kind of where it was going. But as I went down the real hunting journey in Idaho, learning to trap, learning to hunt big game, the idea morphed, and it was more about a reflection on me. I'm like, man, like, I don't know how I would have taken this divorce had I not had this outlet that I just so happened to start dabbling in a year prior.
Gets your mind off a lot of things.
Yeah. And just the growth that I was experiencing as an adult, right? 30-year-old, now 35, it's just been exponential. And I credit all that to hunting, the hunting community, from the physical, the mental, and just the appreciation for, the lives we ultimately take, which is a big part of it.
Yeah. Crazy. So then you kick out the book, Turning Feral.
Yep.
And have you got a lot of response from readers where they're like, man, I'm an adult onset hunter as well. It's like a lot of relational people like reaching back out to you.
Yeah. And that's been kind of one of the nicest things is that response. I get really 3 types of responses. One is the negative, which hurts. It hurts so bad. I can't lie that it doesn't hurt. There's a couple 1-star reviews on Amazon that just kill me. But it's that response of like, I don't believe you, or you haven't put in your dues.
Interesting.
Fine. Yeah. And I get it. There's people who've been doing it their whole lives. So there's that response.
Yeah.
But the overwhelming majority has been from people who've been hunting their whole lives. And it's been the response of, wow, I kind of forgot what it's like to go through that. And oftentimes people will say, hey, like, this has helped me so much because I've been trying to get insert family member or friend into hunting. And often they've turned them off in the past because they bring them along and they just expect them to know everything. Mm-hmm. And one of the points in the book that I really try to get across is it's okay to fail. And like, it's a little bit of a humorous book, but it really is kind of a chronicling of my failures, following a very steep learning curve as an adult of like learning to gut an animal.
Yeah.
It's not easy when you don't have a mentor right over your shoulder.
Yeah.
But those hunters that have been around a long time, they're like, man, I appreciate just this viewpoint to bring me back to what I felt like when I was an 8-year-old kid and my dad was dragging me along.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have 2 daughters, and last year was my first chance to take my oldest daughter on Montana's new apprentice season. Mm-hmm. So now in Montana, you can have a mentor and hunt at 10 as an apprentice. And that's kind of a new thing. When I was a kid, you had to wait until you were 12. And so my daughter and I trained all last summer and got her ready on her rifle for her apprentice season. So you can only shoot deer, and you can only, they get the chance to hunt in this youth only season.
Yeah.
And it was very similar for me, where it was like, wow, this is like reinvigorating to be back out here hunting with a kid, because I think there are so many things that I took for granted and didn't realize it. And we just didn't know how lucky we were to, like, I was born and raised out here. My dad's from a family of 9, so he had 7 brothers. All of them were big on like getting us out fishing, backpacking, hunting, hiking. And so we were exposed to it like at 6 years old or younger. And it was just what we did all the time. And so to go back out with Ava, my oldest daughter, and see her like just get so excited about setting up camp, and then so excited about like how bright the stars are at night when no one else is around. And it's all those little things you forget that, you know, that you don't realize, like how much knowledge has actually been poured into year after year after year after year to like give you the skills that you have now. It doesn't feel like a lot until you really look back and analyze, like my daughter at 10, of course, she shot a great buck with a great hunt. My dad was with us, so we had 3 generations out there.
That's awesome.
It was like the coolest thing ever. But that was like her first experience learning how to field dress a deer by herself with me helping. Like at 10, it's really intimidating. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's hard to learn what to do from like a video without someone over your shoulder like helping you. So to go through that as an adult, I'm sure is super fascinating process.
Well, the inverse is true to exactly what you said. You had 3 generations. You had all this knowledge, what would be probably 60 years worth of hunting knowledge, to then guide your daughter who was already intimidated. But then you take the adult onset hunter, which is a growing community, right? And there's mixed feelings about it, you know, getting people out in the field and opportunity loss, things like that. But, you know, I think there's something to be said for people doing mentoring and helping other people along, because, you know, Ava's been exposed to it her whole life.
Yeah.
Now you take your buddy Jim, who's been going to the CrossFit gym with you, seen you hunt, became hunt curious himself, maybe went and bought a bow and learned to hunt. He's like, hey man, do you mind if I like tag along? He's at a bigger disadvantage than Ava.
Yeah.
And how do you start to bridge that gap and help them? And there's just a big opportunity for that kind of openness in the community, I feel like. And I felt it for sure. Like there are people who are defensive.
Yeah.
But there's also a vast majority that are more open and welcoming and want to mentor, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing, because I think like Mountain Tough's big call to action last year was like Mountain Toughers need to book something really difficult outdoors and just go do it. And most of the time, backcountry hunting scratches that problem. And it doesn't have to be backcountry hunting, but the things that it can teach humans is so overwhelmingly positive in terms of life change. Like if someone books like you did, like a September archery elk hunt out west with an outfitter, or if they just plan a DIY hunt and do it themselves, instantly they get that Spartan effect where they're going to start training for that event. And so like once it's on your calendar, then all of a sudden like you're waking up earlier, you're pushing your workouts a little harder, just because this thing is on your calendar. All of a sudden like your mindset shifts. But then the training for that experience is phenomenal, even learning a new skill like a bow. But then the real magic is like outside, there's going to be some elements thrown at them that they've never seen before. You can't control the weather. You can't control what animals are going to do. And that's where you really see the life change kick in. Like it can change the trajectories of someone's entire life. And
case in point.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's hard to quantify too for people who haven't done it, you know, and somebody like myself who I never understood, despite being tangentially exposed to it, the benefits of hunting. And that was my young, dumb interpretation. Like, oh, well, you just go kill an animal. So it is what it is. But there is this primal connection that you end up with the land. I'm not going to say the animal, because oftentimes you don't even get that opportunity, but you start to stack those things on top of each other. And for me, it's just given me appreciation for what's actually important to me, you know, and that's been my battle, because I came from the linear corporate career trajectory to kind of bucking that, like keeping it like it is. Again, I am fully plugged in the matrix. I admit that. And it pays the bills and it pays for hunts.
Yeah.
But that's not where my passion lies. My passion is definitely aligned with being outdoors. And I've been able to, with my family, build that life, right? We have this cabin.
Yeah.
We live out there. I can still do my day job, get on my Zoom calls, you know, groom a Jira board, do all the other things that you got to do. But then I can walk outside, have no cell service. Yeah. Walk outside and see a deer, an elk, an antelope. And I know that's not accessible for everybody, but trying to, or at least putting yourself in those situations, whether that's just a hard event on your calendar each year, or an actual hunt, it opens up a lot.
Yeah, now you have 2 young kids that you're exposing all that to already. And like their passion for the outdoors at that early age, like will be a game changer for sure.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, but my little daughter just sat down in the woods out there for an hour and played with pine straw. But yeah, it was fun because I get to carry her on trap lines. So this winter I had a little sled.
Yeah.
And I took her out on my beaver trap line, and we went and pulled out beaver, and she had a great time sitting there petting it. And then, you know, it was a family affair when we got home, because then you got to skin the beaver, flesh the beaver. My wife helps me hoop all the beavers and punch holes, and my daughter's sitting there helping and, you know, just having a blast of a time.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like butchering and field dressing with my kids has been the coolest thing ever. 'Cause like we butcher all our own deer and elk, and they've been helping me since they were like 3 or 4, just like out in the garage cutting meat. It's like in Montana, it's always super cold when you're butchering your deer and elk. And so we'll have like little space heaters on, the grinders out. And it's really cool because they'll always be like, Dad, is this the deer I helped butcher? Is this the elk like chorizo that I helped make? And they know that whole like circle of life. They know like Dad shot this, I helped him cut it up, and now we're eating it for dinner. It's like super black and white.
It's pretty cool. Like we haven't gotten that because we have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old, but you know, our 2-year-old's eating pulled barbecue beaver tacos, right? And loved it. And you know, I grew up in a household that was very vanilla.
Yeah.
My mom is a chicken nugget kind of gal. No offense, Mom. I love you. But you know, no mayonnaise, no avocados. I didn't have an avocado till I was 24.
Crazy.
Yeah. So like we just did not eat. We didn't have a wide palate. It was very basic. Spaghetti, pizza, not necessarily healthy stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a wide variety. So now being able to, as an adult, learning that, wow, I really love all these foods and they're really great for me, to be able to go ahead and pass that down and like see that not translate to my daughter it's empowering to me and my wife, because we both love to eat a wide variety of things, and to see our kids love it even at a young age and just be like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And not have that stigma around it.
Yeah. I love when kids are just able to try things, even if they don't like it. Like just that courage to try something, I think is powerful to like create that at a young age.
Yeah. We're on that path. So hopefully it sticks, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure it could revert at any moment, but for the time being, we're going to keep serving it up, and, you know, hopefully they can continue to enjoy it.
That's awesome. And you've done some other writing as well, so some fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things of trying to figure out where your passions lie. You know, again, corporate wage slave, fully admit it. But I'd love to be a full-time writer one day. I'd love to do taxidermy. So I've been exploring these other areas that kind of relate to the outdoor world. So this book was all about outdoor life. I've written 2 fiction books, and I have a 3-book deal with a publisher in historical Westerns, all about Idaho history. So one is specifically set in Atlanta, Idaho in the 1860s. The series is called The Bone Scraper. It's kind of like Louis L'Amour meets Quentin Tarantino.
Awesome.
So if you like a good old Western with a good bit of violence, it's a great book series for that. The second's in the Owahis, and the third one is going to be set up in like the Island Park area.
Dang.
So
was it hard for you to switch from nonfiction to fiction?
Yes and no. So I've always been performance oriented to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would read, I love to read, always did. My grandfather, I credit him with a lot. Like when I was 13, 14, he said, there's a deal that I'm going to give you. You ever want a book, I will buy it for you. Because he's like, if you ever want anything, it's in a book. He didn't know about Google, so it wasn't on his radar. But nonetheless, he's like, if you want to do it, go to the library, get a book. And he said, I'll buy you a book. If you ever want a book to learn something,
I'll buy it.
And he stuck with it. And
Dang.
I took advantage of it. So it was all nonfiction books, I think like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just performance-related stuff, or like a Dean Karnazes book on like Marathon Man, things that I was interested in at the time, performance-based. So I read nonfiction my whole life. And I felt like if I was reading and I wasn't getting an edge or something out of it, then I was wasting my time. So like I'd turn my nose up and be like, I feel reading Harry Potter, you're just wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
But then just literally this past year, my wife's like, let's read a fiction book. And I rolled my eyes. And then she was smart. She picked, what's the Jack Carr series?
Terminal List.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we got that first book and we read it and I really enjoyed it. And like, I actually like flexed my brain a little bit. I'm like, well, that wasn't bad. Like, I don't know why this was a boogeyman in my head. Like I was going to get dumber from reading a fiction book. And then I was like, I think I could do that. And I'm big into trying to challenge myself to do things. So I was like, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a book in 6 weeks. I researched it. I went and sat at the Atlanta Historical Society for a couple weeks, had an idea in my head and got it on paper.
So that first fiction was in 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
Dang.
But I mean, that's pre-editing.
Yeah.
And then it took several months to shop it around to a publisher.
Yeah.
And then I'd been toying with the second one. And then when I signed a deal with the publisher, then I knocked out the second one. And then I've been procrastinating on the third. Which
do you like better at this point?
I like the fiction.
More fun.
Yeah. Like I've actually, like this book was fun to write because it was a little cathartic and it was about an area I'm passionate about. But I get excited to wake up. Like I'd be in the middle of the day. I'm like, oh, I should do that to that character. No one will see that coming. Or, think of some twisted way to kill somebody off. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like crowdsource like really weird ways to kill people off from my friends, which is probably a weird text string, but weave those in. It's a lot of fun. It was just it was a different creative outlet for me. And so far I've enjoyed it. So we'll see how far we can take it.
Yeah. I bet that's like a really good creative outlet. Almost like meditation therapy where you're just like clearing out your brain away from all the work and just thinking of crazy stories and how you can twist the plot.
Well, it's also like if it's based in an area you're used to. So like the first one was in Idaho, in Atlanta. So I could put myself in those shoes. Like, well, what would it have been like here then? What would they have been feeling? And same in the Owahis, same in Island Park where I've done some elk hunting too. So it's a little bit of fun just to play that back in my head and think about, okay, I've been there. I've got a pretty good idea of what that terrain's like, and I can build a better picture.
Sure. And throughout this whole journey, since that first elk hunt with that outfitter up until now, you've been like consistently doing Mountain Tough that whole time.
Correct.
So you've kind of seen Mountain Tough's evolution as well, and done a wide variety of our programming.
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting to watch and beneficial, right? Because we talked about when I did the first 45-70 program, I think you guys had 2-minute videos, just like a little motivational speech, like this is going to suck. Enjoy. And then you had the workout listed. So you'd have to pause it, write it down on your whiteboard. You might demonstrate some of the exercises that most people might not have heard about, like monkey planks or, the 180 squat jump to the pack. And you're like, okay, I know what that is now, but I'm going to forget midway through, probably have to go back to the video. And like I said, you'd spend 2 hours doing a workout that you promised be an hour. Move on. And it was great. And it got me to where I wanted to go. But then as it's gone along, it's been amazing to see, the new studio. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. But the co-coaching and adapting to different levels of fitness. So first and foremost, just the ability to hit play and follow along with the athletes that are in the lab. Fantastic, because that takes away the cognitive load for me to have to go write it down, pause the video, go back if I forget a movement, and just watch them go.
No distractions.
No distractions. It's great. And coached, right? You know, it's, I will say the demons come out, especially in the 45-70 at about minute 45.
Yeah.
And, you know, the difference between me doing a half-hearted 180 jump squat where mine looks real pathetic versus having Sarah or somebody on the screen or you
yelling,
go, don't give up for him.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we don't sacrifice form. You know, we're not doing CrossFit burpees. We do full push-ups here, you know, Mountain Tough. But hearing that, you know, it does click. And it's not the same as being in person, but it does help you get the reps and it helps you get them cleaner than when it was just, here's a workout, go.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then seeing those other athletes that are like working right alongside with you and seeing like how they're struggling, how you can keep up with them.
Well, even the coaching points. Because, you know, again, when you're there by yourself, like you let stuff slide more. It's just the nature of it.
Yeah.
But then if, you know, somebody's on the screen and they're doing step ups and they're not activating their glute at the top and really lifting that knee high, and you hear them correct that, you can self-assess a little bit in that moment and be like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that either. Yeah. And then you kind of pep up a little bit and at least get another rep in like that before you go back to slouching.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a cool way to run through a program. Like when we're not in the lab, a lot of times my wife and I, like on the weekends or during the week, if we're at the house, not here at work, and we're looking for a workout, we'll go to the MGDs because I know like I can hit play.
No, you don't, because they're not a catalog and you can only hit the one on Friday.
No, we'll do the Friday one through the weekend. So like if I'm home on Saturday.
I'm speaking for the people here, by the way. We need a catalog for MGDs.
Yeah, we've been hearing that. We need like a bank of the top 20 or something for people to go through. But I'll do it and I'll hit play. And I love it because I won't get distracted.
Yeah.
Where on even our own self-guided programs, if I'm at home, because I have my phone and I need to revert to like, hey, what was that movement? Then my buddy will text me, now I'm distracted. Yeah. But the MGDs hit play, and you just know like you're going to get a phenomenal 30-minute workout, like no questions asked.
Yeah. The other cool evolution that I'll touch on here is the 45-70. My wife did that with me. And you know, my wife is an athlete, but some of those were killer. Yeah. And she has now had 2 kids. We just had our second kid 9 months ago. Figured that out. Got the math right. 9 months ago, yeah. And being able to revert back and do the on-ramp. So just the different scaling options that are available now for individuals who, you know, maybe took a little time off. Yeah. Or had a child. And being able to get those skills back and build up from a base instead of jumping right into one of the self-guided programs has been amazing. And my wife's a great testament to that, because she, over the last 9 months, I think even a couple weeks postpartum, she was doing the on-ramp program.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and she loved it.
And now she's pretty into the dailies, huh?
She is very much into the dailies, also wanting to have a catalog, but very much into it and loves it.
That's awesome. Yeah, we got her autographed Sarah shirt today from Sarah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. So this is not going to air before Mother's Day, is it?
No.
Okay, that's her Mother's Day gift. To kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Brilliant. That'll be awesome. Cool. And so now your career has taken another spin.
Oh, yeah.
And another spin. And now you're getting ready to launch a new company that you've been working on for a while, the Outfitter Guide. What is the background information there?
Well, the background information there is that we need to get it built and launched. So, yeah, we're 4th in inches right now. But when I came out to Idaho, started hunting, got involved with Idaho Trappers Association, got involved with Idaho Fish and Game, just because I like to learn all the different views into areas that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I've made a lot of friends in a lot of those different areas, and including you and other people. And it's made me realize that I want to align my professional career with this industry. And I've set like a 5 to 10 year goal to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was building the Outfitter Guide, but it was birthed from my experience as an adult onset hunter, going on my first guided hunts, which were fantastic. Didn't harvest an animal. However, the customer experience, something that I'm pretty intimately familiar with just from my corporate world, was something to be
lagging behind.
Yeah, it was a situation where I went to Google or bookyourhunt.com, or there's a company called the Outfitter Services. They do a great job of aggregating all the different outfitters around. You can choose your weapon, your animal, time of year, what you want to do, and they'll give you outfitters essentially that do that. That's fantastic. That's what I did. But when I landed in the lap of the outfitter, I talked to somebody who didn't really want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I called and they're like, yep, we got this archery elk. We'll see you in 8 months. The cost is high. So let's say it's $6,000, $7,000, which is the average cost of a Western big game hunt, not including airfare, gear, everything else. To a P.O. box, 7 states away from where you're going to be hunting, via check, and no communications after that. So I sent that first check and thought I got scammed. I'm like, well, there's $3,000 down the drain.
Just old school.
Yeah. And being an adult onset hunter where I was just getting into mountain tough, I was just starting to learn how to try and bugle. 4 years later, we're just getting there. And it was difficult. I wanted answers. I saw it as an investment. It was an investment in my education and going out here, but with an investment, you expect some sort of return.
Mm-hmm.
So I would email and it would take weeks. And by the time I showed up, I was unsure if I was actually going to be fed because there was no information. So my wife packed me 10 Cliff Bars and I was kind of like crossing my fingers. I'm like, well, if they don't have food here, I'm going to be really screwed.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I showed up and it was fantastic. They had a wall tent, they had somebody cooking. It was an amazing experience, but I'm like, why can't we translate what that experience is like to a hunter? So what we've built is just a software platform. It's a B2B2C, meaning we sell to outfitters. Outfitters can log in, upload all their information, waivers, their payment plans, as much as they want about the service, meaning like it could be pictures of wall tents. It could be like, here's how you steer a horse, right, left, center, things that people coming from out east likely don't know. And then they can onboard hunters from our application. So now if, Dustin, you look up an outfitter and you say, I want to go with you, they're going to go on the back end of the Outfitter Guide, type in, okay, Dustin wants to do a muzzleloader elk hunt in October. We cover that, great, hit send. Then you as a hunter are going to get an email from us. And that email is going to say, hey, welcome, Dustin. We're the Outfitter Guide. We're going to carry you along this journey, which is anywhere from 8 months to 2 years, likely from the time you book a hunt.
For sure. Yeah.
There's a long gap period there, especially when you start to get into like tags that are draw only or have low odds.
Yeah.
And then you build a profile, you pay through there, you upload any of the documentations you need to, think hunting license, archery permit, things like that. And then after that moment, we take over the customer service. So you're going to get emails from us with things like, hey, we see, Dustin, that you're in Charleston, South Carolina at sea level. You're about to be hunting sheep at 11,000 feet in Alaska in 2 months. Have you done your lunges? Here's a discount code for Mountain Tough. You might want to get on the 4570 and waste 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
But it's that approach. So we're going to be doing affiliate discount codes along the way, getting them ready. Because it's already a low percentage chance pursuit, we want to help optimize that. So we want them to focus on the hunt.
Do everything you can so that they thrive once they get there.
Yeah.
And they're not feeling like alone and abandoned on that like 8 to 2 year waiting period.
Yep. And, so that also helps our outfitters. Repeat customers, that experience, it should be a white glove experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we were at the Western Hunt Expo in Salt Lake City in February, and it's crazy the amount of money people spend on hunts.
Yeah.
The average is $7,000 for a Western big game elk hunt, but it goes up to, what did we hear? What did that tag go for? $400,000. I mean, that's the exception, not the rule. But if you're looking at sheep hunting up in BC, you're looking $60,000, $70,000. Then you can touch on African, high fence in Texas. The list goes on and on, but they all need this customer experience that should go along with that amount of money people are willing to pay.
That's so cool, because I think, like, from my viewpoint, what I've seen is there's so many great outfitters. They're great at hosting a world-class experience in terms of, like, the camp, the horses, the backcountry,
the knowledge,
the meals, the knowledge. And most of those guys that I'm friends with are world-class at hosting in that kind of environment. But a lot of times they're like a third generation outfitter, and they have like sticky notes in their office that are people they need to call back or email back, just because usually that side of the business isn't their cup filler. Their cup filler is outside doing hard work. And so some of those communication points can get just dropped through the cracks, even though they're still going to provide a world-class hunt.
Yep.
I could definitely see that gap of a few tools to make sure it's a world-class customer experience on the front end.
Yeah, and that's the goal, right? I mean, all these outfitters, and I've had the opportunity to go on several now, which is amazing. And to your point, I haven't had a bad experience with an outfitter. These guys and gals just bust their rumps to get out there and give you a great experience. That includes going out and scouting. That includes packing in wall tents. That includes packing in food and making sure everything's going to be a great experience so you can do the thing, which is focusing on the hunt. But you can't erase people's anxiety leading up to that if they've never done it or it's a new area. And if we can help alleviate that and just make that experience seamless from the time someone goes to Google or bookyourhunt.com all the way to when they tag out or don't, that's great for the industry.
Great. Yeah. I mean, we've all had tough customer experience, things come up in our life, and we've all had that smooth, seamless customer experience. And it's night and day difference for sure.
Yeah. And then for those who are adult onset hunters, if you have the means, I highly recommend going on a guided hunt. Like, that was my secret sauce to beating down that learning curve. I felt like a toddler with my guide. Like, we still talk today. He gives me grief about it, but it was literally like, well, why did you step that way? Why did you pause? All these questions that I wanted or would have asked as a kid growing up in a family that hunted that I never got the chance to. It was this immersive experience to, really learn.
Yeah. I think the amount of like knowledge you can get from that is insane. We used to do the same thing growing up when I was young. Like, we were traveling the world, fly fishing, because my dad was really passionate about fly fishing. And kind of his secret strategy was, like, if we were going to fly to Alaska to fly fish, he would always book a guide on that first day and gain as much knowledge as he could. And then we'd go fish on our own for like day 2 through 7. But he wanted that like immersive experience right away on the front end to cut out a lot of those rookie mistakes. And it definitely was a game changer.
Yeah, those first 2 years I did guided hunts, and then now I've been kind of doing DIY. And also the framework of my relationship in the industry has changed because now I have friends who've been doing it for a long time. And if you have those access to people, by all means, take that. But if you don't, if you're like me, coming from a world where you just didn't have any exposure, guided hunts are genuinely a great way to really, like I said, beat the learning curve down.
For sure. And are you hoping to get the outfitter guide in a beta version into the hands of some outfitters this year?
Yes. So we have 5 outfitters that are signed up for our beta, and we're actually onboarding them in the next week or 2. So they'll be hopefully booking 2024 hunts, if they have any left, through our program pretty soon. And then we met a lot of outfitters at the Western Hunt Expo. we've had a lot of interest. We have a lot of people on our wait list to purchase the software and give it a whirl. So hopefully it'll be alive and in the wild in the next few weeks. Development is always a bear, but we're fourth in inches, like I said, and it's an exciting time. And we do have a website, so if you go to www.theoutfitter.guide, you can check it out. You can look at our pretty little faces on there and read a little bit about it. We have a few blogs about problems we're trying to solve, things like that.
And I'm guessing you're learning a tremendous amount of getting a startup off the ground as well.
Well, I've had a little bit of experience that before. I've started a startup 13 years ago that failed miserably, which got me into my job in product management in the first place. I did found a live streaming company, of all things, in oral and maxillofacial surgery that we had for 6 years, and then it exited. So I have a little bit of experience there, but it's never the same, and it's never easy. It's talk about mental toughness and a mental grind.
Yeah.
You're trying to get people to work for what? Nothing.
Yeah.
So you're trying to bring this cobble of really well talented individuals to deliver a product that you believe or hypothesize will, hit the market and do well, but you don't know till you do it. So you're trying to get people, ultimately, you're working for free, your partners are working for free, and
all for the passion of the idea. Yeah,
it is. And the good thing is everybody that's involved with the companies are hunters, some are guides, all have like a technical background. So it's a pretty cool little group of guys that we've got building it out.
And you're still doing quite a bit of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, well, yeah. So this breaks my heart a little bit. So my wife and I now have 2 young kids. We had an accident up at the cabin. I don't know if I told you about that.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, so my wife got taken out by our Cane Corso dog at the cabin with no cell service when she was 7 months pregnant. Fell, cracked her head, sounded like a .22 rifle, went off, no cell. So I had to run back and get life flight helicopter to come in, and we were in Boise in the trauma center within 50 minutes of the accident, 9 staples, a couple stitches later, some bad vertigo. She was fine.
Wow.
Baby was fine. But it was a wake-up call for me a little bit, where with us having a 7-month-old and a 2-year-old now, we ended up buying a second house in Boise, which, again, very grateful that we were able to do that. But the winter's been tough. Our road's been avalanched in a lot, so we have spent a lot more time in Boise this winter.
Yep.
So double-edged sword, kills the soul a little bit when you want to be up at the cabin and around everything you built, cut into trapping season a little bit more. But it has afforded me, on the bright side, to be back in the gym a lot. So tons of jiu-jitsu, which is something I've done for 15 years, wrestled, and getting back on the mats is a great therapy when you're stuck in the city.
Yeah, probably great therapy for getting through just the stress relief of a startup and stuff like that as well.
Oh yeah, and pretty much everybody in the startup does jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's actually where I met 2 of the guys, was at our jiu-jitsu gym. And then we became hunting buddies. So it's all kind of tied together a little bit.
Yeah, what a great place to meet like-minded people looking to do something hard, mental toughness, grit.
Yeah, and it's something that's hard to find, right? And you and I have talked about it before. It's when you find, and I hate this word, so I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to regret it, even though my eyes tell a different story. When you find a tribe.
Yeah.
And it's important. And my dad gave me one piece of advice as a kid, and I stuck with it. He's like, pick good friends. And I've always had a very small number of close friends, but those close friends have been a staple and like a backbone in my entire life through all the ups and downs, deaths, divorces, everything. And that is key. And then growing that. And when you can find a group or a pursuit, whether that's jiu-jitsu, whether that's ultra running, whether that's, fitness to get ready for the backcountry, whether that's hunting, if you can find that, the likelihood of that small group having some really great people in there that you want to set, or model your life after is very high.
Yeah.
And exponential growth from a spiritual perspective, from a physical perspective, when you can find that in between jiu-jitsu, backcountry hunting. Like, I've been very lucky that my passions and interests have always aligned with things that just produce really tough, gritty people.
So true. Yeah, in those tough, gritty environments, you can see people's true character.
It weeds people out fast. Yeah.
It weeds out the wrong people really fast. And then, like, the people that'll stick with it and with you through those experiences turn out to be the people you want to surround yourself around anyways. Like, you see it so often in backcountry hunts, like the crew that'll come help you pack out a bowl and that'll drop whatever they're doing to go make that happen, or like friends for life, not only because they'll do that, but then when you're out there going through adversity together, it's just wild.
Yeah, adversity breeds a different type of friendship.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel very lucky from like wrestling at a young age. Like, it was a group of guys suffering. It sucked every day. And then you'd go out in front of a crowd in a cold gym in a singlet and have a 50-50 shot of getting pinned in front of your girlfriend and embarrassed. And it breeds a humility, and it breeds this like understanding that you need to be fed humble pie every day and seek out humble pie.
Yeah.
And that workout you wrote today was definitely a piece of that. Thank you.
That was a good chunk of adversity. I was getting smoked today.
That was a whole pie, not just a piece.
Doing hard things every day is so valuable. It's wild just how it makes 90% of all these other things that normally would stress me out just seem like non-issues.
Yeah.
Like, it just puts things into perspective really quick.
Yeah, and then when you have that monkey mind go off, as we all have it, when the stress bug starts eating at you, like, it's a trigger for me. It's like, okay, I need to go work out. Or my wife, she sees it. She's like, you need to go out to the gym or go out in the woods or something. But it becomes a great coping mechanism at the end of the day. It's like you can start to feel when you're off. And usually for me, that coincides when I've been a little lazy or missed a workout or, done something that I shouldn't have done, had too many to drink, something like that. And it's a good fix.
Yeah. Yeah. The mind-body connection is so powerful.
Yeah, if I could just figure out the sleep thing, then I'd have it going.
Yeah. Well, I'm stoked you came over to the lab, man. That was really awesome that you just loaded up and packed up, drove over here, slept in your car.
Slept in the car, about to do it on the way home. But, man, it was a blast. The lab looks great. You guys are doing amazing things, and I'm excited to see where it goes in another 4 years and where everybody's at.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mountain Tough's been a crazy journey, and we just keep evolving, and it's been hard, but it's been really, really like an amazing journey. It's been awesome.
Yeah, like you said, you're building a factory, churning out amazing people physically, mentally, and I'm sure it reaches even further than you know when you're reaching into people's living rooms and pulling them off their couch and making them do a ton of lunges. So
yeah,
it's awesome to see.
Cool, Zach. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks
All right,
so
man.
much.
Awesome.